The views and opinions expressed on the following program may not necessarily reflect the views of the staff, management, or board of Hope Media Group and KSBJ. It's what's happening around us, in our town, suburb, city, in our community. It's Community Beat with Kim Kasi McKee on 89.3 KSBJ.
Good morning and welcome to Community Beat, where we're keeping you tuned into the topics that are impacting our local communities and helping them thrive. I'm your host, Kim Kasi McKee. Today's guest is going to be speaking with us about how to cultivate, contribute to, and maintain a safe and healthy work environment, one that is free of sexual harassment, bullying, or any of those things that can make for just an uncomfortable workplace. My guest is Joye Jackson. She's the founder of Speaking of Joy, LLC. She's a dynamic and inspiring professional speaker and facilitator. She has over 18 years of experience in learning and development, project management, business strategy, and communication. Joy is a trusted professional in the corporate and nonprofit arenas. I first met Joy a few weeks ago when she was doing a presentation for our staff on harassment. And I was so inspired. And I know you wouldn't expect to hear the word inspiration hearing about harassment in the workplace. But I was inspired by the way she presented the information. It was a topic that could have been, of course, when they told us we were going to have this training, this mandatory training, you're thinking, oh, brother, what has happened? But prevention is better than cure. And I'm thankful that our organization, though Christian, is proactive in talking about these difficult things. But Joy presented it in a way that it was rooted in love and in the Word of God. And it really, I left the training feeling like, that was a great workshop. And so I'm so excited that she is here today to share more with us on the subject. So good morning, Joy, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Kim. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a trek to get here, but I am excited to talk about just God and harassment and understanding what God really expects of us as it relates to how we live and how we conduct ourselves. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yes. So Joy, tell us a little bit about Joy. Are you from Houston or...
Yes, I am born and raised in Houston. You don't see too many people.
About two of us.
There you go. See? Born and raised in Houston. I actually grew up in Pasadena, but I always went to school on the north side and graduated, went to Tennessee State University in Nashville, came back to Houston, did a brief radio stint. I'm talking like 2 years.
All right.
But then I found my love for training and development. I was working for Monster.com and they were doing training. Didn't know anything about it. I didn't know it was an industry. I mean, common sense would say everybody gets training.
Sure.
But you never think about people needing training. So started doing training and development and have spent the last few years doing it. And then in 2020, I was the chief strategy officer for an organization and I lost my job. But it was the best thing that could have happened.
Amazing.
Because I started Speaking of Joy. And so now I get to do the things that I love for myself, which is training and development, talking about God, and empowering women. So I am doing what I absolutely love.
Wow.
Yes.
So I have to ask you, is Joy your real name?
Yes, ma'am. And what's odd, it's spelled Joye.
Yes.
I have no idea why my mom put an E on it. She was just like, I want you to be different.
Yeah,
I'm like, well, lady, you did it. You did it. I think I've met 2 other Joyes in my entire life, 44 years. So I like to think the E stands for excellent, extraordinary, energetic, enthusiastic, all of that.
Oh,
so that's what I've done with the E's because, so that's my birth name. I'm an only child. My parents couldn't have children.
Wow.
And so when they had been trying for like 5 years. And so when they finally had me, my mom prayed the prayer to God, like, well, if you can give Sarah a baby and you can give Hannah a baby, then surely you can do it for me. And here I am.
Oh, literally a bundle of
joy. That's it.
That is such a beautiful testimony. I love that. Absolutely love that. So Joy, let's talk about this topic that, some people may hate that we even have to talk about it, but this area of harassment, what is harassment? What is the definition of harassment?
So I think we look at harassment for a couple of ways. Harassment is anything that's unwelcome, where it makes a person feel intimidated or uncomfortable, where it makes a person feel just not themselves and they're not valued, and it begins to bleed into their productivity, their self-worth, their self-esteem. And so we always tend to make harassment about sexual harassment, but harassment is not just sexual harassment. It could be bullying, it could be teasing. All of those things really, when a person feels uncomfortable and it's unwelcome, it can be categorized as harassment. But we typically look at it from one perspective. But if anyone feels that way, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's at home, wherever they may be, if they start to feel that and they ask for it to stop and it doesn't, then that's when it's considered harassment.
So what, you touched on it a little bit, but what are some of those types of harassment? Because sometimes I think people can just call everything harassment. Yes. To the point where you don't know really what is it for real.
Exactly. So I will say that some of the most common ones are, of course, sexual harassment. Another one is typically quid pro quo, and that's this for that. So that means that I do something for you and you do something for me. Most of the time, that's in a sexual advanced nature.
Sure.
But it means I can help you benefit if you perform sexual favors or things like that for me. But I begin to expand even that definition, because it doesn't always have to be a sexual relationship. It can be any type of relationship where there's a benefit created as if I have to do this for you in order to receive something. So that could be harassment. Another one is a hostile work environment. I mean, I don't think we really understand what that means. It's where you're in an environment where you're not comfortable, where you're not safe. Psychological safety is a big one. And when we don't feel psychologically safe and we don't feel like we are being valued, we can also feel like that is a harassing type of behavior. And so we typically say a hostile work environment can also be one. Things that we don't think about as adults, teasing and bullying and joking. That can be, because it's really about, I tell people all the time, the challenge with harassment is that it is really up to the receiver how they feel. It's subjective. And so many times we're like, oh, I was just playing. Oh, they don't. But we don't realize that if it's unwelcome and it makes someone uncomfortable, and especially if they express it, then it could be considered harassment.
That's good. So tell me this, what is the responsibility of the person who feels they have been harassed? Because as you're saying, sometimes a person may think they laughed and the person laughed too, or they might have thought it was okay. And then later on, they get a call from HR.
And that's usually, unfortunately, how it happens, right? We don't do a lot of preventive care. We don't talk about it up front, especially in the work environment. Here's what I believe. We do a lot of classes. You get a computer, you get a workshop, you do it, you click the buttons. Nobody's reading, nobody's interpreting. We're checking boxes to say we've done the work. And then when it all blows up, we're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And so I have a lot of clients who come to me after the fact, not here.
Sure.
But I have a lot of clients who come to me after the fact because they're trying to put a Band-Aid on a wound. And at that point, it's like, well, here's some things you could have done. And one of them is encouraging people, if they feel uncomfortable, to say something. If you don't have to take it.
Right.
And even if you know the person, even if you and the person have a relationship, you still have the ability and the right to say, that made me uncomfortable. Please don't do that. So the first thing you should do, if you feel like someone is harassing you or you're feeling uncomfortable, because you may not want to call it harassment because that word has such a negative connotation.
Sure.
People have lost jobs. There have been lawsuits behind that word.
That's right.
But if you feel uncomfortable at any point, you have every responsibility to say, I don't like that. Please don't continue to do that. Please don't do that again. And I say, give people, treat people with love. So give them the opportunity to course correct. I mean, we live in cancel culture, so we're really quick. The minute somebody does something, I'm going to talk about you. I'm going to tell it. But sometimes it's just making people aware because they may not know. They may not have known that they offended you. They may not have known that, people always joke with me. They're like, oh, Joy. Okay. Joy. They start singing songs. And it doesn't offend me.
Sure.
But if it were to, I have the right to say, hey, I don't like to joke about my name. Please don't do that. And if they respect me, as I hope they do, they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Now, if they continue, then I think that's where I have to take it to the next step. But right away, the goal is really just to say, hey, that made me uncomfortable. Please don't do that again.
Sure. That's good. Because again, to be able to respect the person enough to confront the situation.
Absolutely.
or acknowledge it.
Exactly.
And give them that opportunity to respond.
Absolutely.
In the best way possible. So what are some types of, there's harassment and then there's just disrespect.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So harassment is more the legal term when people are uncomfortable and there is a need to get others involved. But disrespect is something that I think we all unfortunately live with.
Sure.
I think, and I truly believe in the good of people. So I don't believe everyone intends to be disrespectful.
Sure.
I believe that we for the most part, come from a good place.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times we will say things that may rub a person the wrong way. And people have their own frame of reference because of their experience, because of their background, because of their lifestyle, because of how they were raised, because of their interactions. And we wear lenses every day of how we see the world. And so disrespect a lot of times can come because we're not understanding each other. Mm-hmm. Because you're different than I am. You look different than I do. You speak differently. You're from a different part of the city, state, culture. And so a lot of times I believe we're trying to relate in ways.
Sure.
And in our ability to try to relate, we're not doing it the right way.
Sure.
And so I believe disrespect, especially in the workplace, is not all out just ugly, nasty.
Right.
It's just, I'm having a conversation and it seems kind of off-putting to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I don't really know how I feel about that. Or, there's blatant disrespect, but I think we see that.
Sure.
I think the challenge many times in the workplace is the subtleties. Mm-hmm. That we don't talk about because we believe it's okay.
Sure.
Or we allow it to go on because we don't want to disrupt. We don't want to ruffle any feathers. We don't want to be known as the person with the issue. So a lot of times we let it go on and then it comes to a head. Mm-hmm. And that's when everything goes there. So even disrespect, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, and that's the key, you have a right to your feelings.
Right.
You do.
Sure.
You have a right to your feelings. You have a right to say, and based on how I interpreted that, I can say, and then ask for clarity.
That's true.
So before I just assume and accuse you of being disrespectful or inappropriate, I can always say, well, what did you mean by that?
That's good.
People say, oh, you look cute today. Oh, well, thank you. But what did you mean by that? Mm-hmm. You have a right to ask those questions because the minute I ask that, then I get clarity.
Right.
And so I'm no longer confused or interpreting it my way.
That's true.
Because I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. It's operating with good intent.
That's good.
And I believe a lot of times in the workplace, we get so jaded by experiences and people and workplace gossip and all the other things that we don't always assume good intent.
Sure.
And that's a Christian principle. I mean, that's something you got to really think about.
That's true.
Is really saying, okay, I don't believe this person was trying and I'm going to give grace.
Yes.
And I'm going to have conversations and that requires maturity.
Yep, that's so true. If you're just tuning in, we are speaking with Joye Jackson and we're talking about harassment in the workplace and just plain old respect, being respectful to one another, especially as believers. And Joye, when I first started out working in nonprofit, and I happened to have been working in a Christian organization, there was a guy there who had a reputation of kind of just talking down on people, especially women. Mm-hmm. I noticed that a lot of times when he would talk to me, he would literally point his finger in my face. Mm-hmm. And so it just made me feel some kind of way.
Absolutely.
But yet, because he was so much older, I kind of felt, well, this guy is probably old enough to be my oldest brother.
Yes. Yes.
So I hesitated saying anything to him. It got to a point to where I noticed my interactions were changing towards him, where I would rather go to anybody but have him go. And I said, you know what? Because this is bothering you to this point, say something.
Yes.
And so one day I did. He did it. And it was one of those days I had the courage because I talked myself and said, the next time he does that, you need to say something. And I said, I'm sure you don't mean anything by that. Or maybe that's just how you communicate. But when you point in my face directly like that, it feels demeaning in some way. To my surprise, he was surprised.
Yes. Yes.
He was like, I didn't even think about it. I mean, he apologized profusely, and then I learned how to navigate in his space.
Absolutely.
And that's the other things. Some people aren't necessarily going to, their whole personality or style may not change, but at the same time, you can navigate around them in a way that you feel respected.
Absolutely. And it's about understanding your value and understanding what your triggers are.
Yes.
Because if someone pointing in your face is a trigger, and not a trigger meaning it'll cause you to be disruptive,
sure,
but it does something to you. It makes you uncomfortable. It makes you uneasy. Then you have the voice to say, hey, I don't like that. And I believe sometimes we forget that we have a voice. In the workplace, you have a voice. You have the right to say, this makes me uncomfortable. I'm concerned about this. And it doesn't always have to be an HR thing.
Sure.
I mean, we're peers, we're individuals, we're people. So have people relationships. So before you go and get HR involved, just have a conversation. Now, and if you don't feel like you can, then find someone who can help you. So you can also bring in a mediator. You can also bring in someone else. It doesn't always have to be, I got to go here to get the answers. Sometimes it's just recognizing my value and my worth enough to say, that kind of made me uncomfortable when you do that. And a lot of times people don't realize that they're doing it.
Right.
I mean, some people do. Now, we know those people. And I believe we know those people.
Yes.
You know the people like, okay, I'm not dealing with them because I know how they act. But for the most part, most people are unaware.
Right.
And when you make them aware, now they have a responsibility to decide what they're going to do about it. Because my job, my mom always said, I'm held accountable for how I treat you, not how you treat me.
That's good.
So I'm going to treat you with love. I'm going to interact with you with grace. And I'm going to communicate openly and respectfully to you. And that's my expectation. But if you don't do it, then you give me the ability to make decisions on how I communicate with you, on when I communicate with you. So just by speaking your truth and walking in your integrity and your honesty gives people the opportunity to meet you where you are or not. But then you have the ability to decide how you move forward.
So, Joy, how important would it be for a church to have harassment training?
Oh, I mean, here's the thing. The church is made up of people.
That's right.
You know, we make church super spiritual. It's people.
Right.
And people are flawed. People come with issues, baggage, problems, questions, experiences. I don't think there is any entity in the world that will not benefit from harassment training. I think we expect that it won't happen.
Sure.
But again, we would rather have the tools we need when it happens or if it happens than to not have them.
Right.
Because it's still a business. And people will still sue a church member.
Right.
People will, and then unfortunately, the entire church will be tainted behind the actions of individuals.
So true.
So if we're having the conversations up front about what God expects about how we should conduct ourselves as people and as children of God, then I hate to say we eliminate it, but we can reduce the risk and exposure because we know the enemy's coming. Right. And we know he's going to use whatever he can to attack. And if that's what he's going to use, then we at least need to know how to be prepared. And how to be equipped for it.
That's awesome. Good stuff. So, Joy, talk to us about this idea of the world versus our witness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when we talk about witness, we're talking about living like Christ. We're talking about being disciples of Christ. And the world doesn't always look like Christ. We know that, I mean, Romans 12:2 says, be not conformed but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So that lets us know that the world is challenged in looking like God.
Sure.
And there's good and evil. We know that. And so because we know that, when we're talking about harassment, how we treat people, how we love people, the world's going to tell us one way. The world's going to say, if they do something to you, you go and tell them off, you do this, you do that. Whereas, when we're walking like Christ, it's okay, well, I love you. So I'm going to treat you with love. I'm going to treat you with grace. I'm going to believe that you have God in you. And so I'm going to try the Spirit by the Spirit, and I'm going to make sure we're walking in agreement. Whereas the world will tell me, I have every right to cuss you out, to talk crazy to you, to talk about you. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And then again, as we talked about the church, a lot of times we talk about the world versus witness. What are we saying in the church? What are we telling people in the church about forgiveness, about love, about patience, about kindness, about long suffering? What are we teaching there? Because if we're teaching godly principles, then people in the church should be transformed, which means when we get into our workplace, we shouldn't be harassing people. We shouldn't be bullying people. We shouldn't be teasing people because we're equipped with what we need as Christians to walk like Christ. But the world doesn't give us that. The world says, do you how you want to do it. You have every right. You don't owe, it's self-centeredness. So I can respond how I want to respond. I can interact with you how I want to interact with you. If today I'm having a bad day, I can be bad to you. I can take out my frustrations on you, and that's not Christ.
Right.
That's really what we would talk about world and witness. It's really, what does the world say versus what does God say? And knowing that God's word is truth. So he calls us to love our brothers as ourselves.
That's right.
And if I love my brother or my sister as myself, I'm not going to treat them any kind of way.
That's right.
I'm not going to talk about them. I'm not going to make them uncomfortable. I don't want to make myself uncomfortable, and I don't want to make anybody else uncomfortable. So if I don't want to make myself or anyone else uncomfortable, that's the Christian way. And so it's just a battle that we will have until Christ comes back, really, because the enemy is to and fro, seeking who he can devour. And so he's going to attack. So we just have to be equipped and prayed up and ready to continue to fight the fight and work with each other in love, in patience. I mean, the fruit of the Spirit, that's true. And the reason we have that is because we're humans, and we're going to need to do that. We're going to need to extend grace. We're going to need to extend patience. We're going to need to extend kindness, because people make mistakes. People make mistakes. People aren't always trying to do it, but sometimes our jaded views of the world, we have to stop and say, well, what would Jesus do? Remember we used to wear the bracelets.
Oh, yes.
Ain't nobody wearing those bracelets no more. But if we went back to that idea of what would Jesus do, we would be guided differently in how we speak and how we show up and how we interact with each other. So, I could talk about, world and witness forever. Okay.
Oh, no, that's awesome. That is good stuff. I know you do various trainings. Harassment is one.
Yes.
What are some of those other areas that you do trainings in?
So diversity, equity and inclusion. And then I've added also belonging. Okay. So I do a lot of work with a lot of companies on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think we talk about it, but we only talk about it when we need to talk about it.
Sure.
We don't spend enough time saying, and I focus on the areas that say, yeah, we're all different, but we have a lot of similarities.
Right.
I mean, we do. We all. I could say right now, I'm sure somebody else in this room wears corrective lenses. I just happen to have on glasses. Someone may have on contacts. But we both got visual impairments, So really focusing on those, on the beauty of the canvases that we are, that come together. So I do diversity. I do team building. So my background is in training. So I tell people all the time, whatever you need, I'll write it, because I love development and I love partnering with organizations to create their real solution. I'll tell people I'm not a one size fits all person. You can go pay for somebody to do that. But if you're really trying to impact change in your organization, or on your team, or in your personal life, then I'm the person, because my job is to do that work, to sit with you, to discuss, to identify the needs, and then to create solutions that are really going to transform the lives of the people that you work with.
I also saw that you are DISC certified.
Yes.
And that was very exciting, because our entire team just went through DISC. And if I were to guess where you are on the DISC assessment, I would think you're probably a DI or definitely an I.
Definitely an I. And baby, my dot is so far to the outside of the circle. If you sneeze, it's going to fall out. I am an I to the max.
Okay. So an I, in case you've not heard of the DISC, it's a behavioral, patterns of behavior, how we show up, how we lead, and an I stands for the influencer. People who are very outgoing.
Outgoing.
Social butterflies.
Yes, collaborative. We're the engagements. We're also the ones who probably don't stay on task in the team.
There you go.
So listen, if you're talking to somebody or you're listening to somebody right now, you're like, okay, that's her. Yes. If they, but harmony, cohesion, inclusiveness, that's super important. For an I personality style. And even for me, I believe that we all have a voice. I believe we all have a contribution.
Yes.
I believe we all have a purpose.
I'm an I too, so that's why we immediately got along. And if we had our druthers, we'd be headed to the party after this.
Yes.
But the beauty of DISC is that it shows that everyone matters.
Absolutely.
Wherever you are, whatever your personality style, type, God created you that way for a reason.
And it's all needed. We can't, everyone has a part to play in a team. So it's all needed. So we can't say, because if it were a whole lot of I's, me and Kim, we'd never get anything done because we'd be talking so much.
That's right.
So you got to have some D's. You've got to have some S's and some C's. And that's the beauty of teamwork. That's the beauty of uplifting each other, because where I'm weak, someone else is strong. And where they're weak, I'm strong. That's the members of the body. Right? Everybody has an important part to play. And so I think DISC is a great way to show that. And then when you get real technical, you can be an ID and an IS. And,
of course.
And you got shading everywhere and all of that. But it shows you, and it's really, DISC is about how you show up under pressure. That's what people don't realize. It's really how do you interact when you're under pressure. And if you don't know, think about it. Think about what if people said about you. Even if you've never taken DISC before, what if people said about you when you get under pressure? How do you respond? How do you communicate?
Right.
And then that really kind of helps you understand just who you are. And then you can make decisions.
Yes,
so, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Joy, it's been so great talking to you. Tell us what's on the horizon for you, or how can we be praying for you in the time to come?
Yes, absolutely. So really speaking of Joy is in a season of evolution, but in a great way.
Okay.
What's happening is God is allowing me the platform to really do a lot of transformative work and purpose and vision. Okay. So I've been doing a lot of work in vision, individually with women and with companies, helping them create the vision that they see for themselves. And so that's been a blessing. When I first started speaking of Joy, it was a leadership company many moons ago.
Okay.
But after a few years, because I've been doing this 4 years now, full time.
All right. Congratulations.
So after really spending time with God and asking him what my legacy is, he showed me. So I spent a lot of time talking about mission and vision and values, but not just from a corporate perspective, but from individuals. Because we all should have a mission. We all should have values. And so I'm really doing a lot of work with that. The rest of this year is really what I'm focusing on. I have a couple of works coming out. So God is opening some opportunities for me to do some writing and to do some workshops. And so it's just really a beautiful season to be trusting in God wholeheartedly and watching him open doors that I mean, this is a door.
Sure.
Who knew I was going to be doing some training and it turned into you all talking to me, right?
Yes.
So it's just really being obedient to where God has for me and asking him to lead and guide me so that I can do the work that he's called me to do.
Awesome. Yes. Well, we are so thrilled to have had you on with us today.
Thank you.
And it won't be the last time. So thanks again to our guests this morning, Joy Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you.
From Speaking of Joy. And so to learn more about her trainings and to follow Joy along, where did we need to go, Joy?
So you can find me on any social media platform at Speaking of Joy, Joye. Don't forget the E. So you can find me on any social media platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And I also have my website, www.speakingofjoy.com. So anywhere in the TV land, all of that, social media land, you will find me at Speaking of Joy. And I tell people all the time, you'll work directly with me. You'll speak directly to me. I don't have a bot. I don't have anybody, because anyone who reaches out, I believe that God orchestrated that moment. So we're going to connect together. So
awesome. Yes. Well, and as always, thank you to our wonderful audience for joining us. And we hope you'll tune in again next week for another edition of Community Beat. I'm Kim Kasi McKee on 89.3 KSBJ.
Thanks for joining us for Community Beat with Kim Kasi McKee. Join us every Saturday morning at 5:30 on 89.3 KSBJ.